Gospel of the Lord. Where'd that line go? Over the 99 righteous people who have no need of repentance. Will there be 99? Interesting question. There are many righteous people. I suppose the point there is we are all sinners. Today it's suggested that we use the votive Mass for Jesus Christ, eternal high priest. I suspect it's because, obviously, the readings, and I don't know how people hear or receive this reading from Paul to the Romans. And it's difficult, really, probably more so for ourselves as a first world country. Because first world countries, generally, spoken and more often not unspoken, really live with philosophies of competition, compare and contrast. Are you in or are you out? Do you have it or don't you have it? And who has more? It's really a competition culture. So when Paul says, none of us lives for ourselves and none of us dies for ourselves. No, it's my life, really. Yeah, it's yours because it was given you, but who was the giver? Our lives belong to God. We belong to God. Not necessarily in the sense of possession, like this is my pen, this is my wristwatch. But we belong to God because we were created by God, redeemed by God, forgiven by God, and adopted by God beyond our sin so that we can be united to the one who created us. It's a hard concept to grasp because we really live, again, in that culture of competition and individualism. I can do it better myself. And the more things I can do by myself, all the better. South Africa is not a first world nation. And you may recall the story about the Ubuntu tribe. It's really a philosophy of life. I don't know that it's a religion per se. But there was a social scientist that went from United Kingdom, England, somewhere in that area, which is a first world economy. And he went to the Ubuntu tribe in South Africa with this huge basket of fruit. And he said, he gathered a whole bunch of kids, and he put the basket of fruit at the far end of a field. He said, okay, whoever gets there first can have the basket of fruit. So he gets them all lined up, and he kind of tells them all about it, and this and that. And he says, go. And they all slowly walk together, and when they get to the bowl of fruit, they all sit down, and they all enjoy a piece. And the social scientist was like, oh, wow, that didn't work at all. They didn't do what I expected at all. So he went into the kids and said, well, why didn't somebody run ahead and get all the fruit? He said, well then, what would I do with all of it? Because everybody else would be unhappy because no one else, what am I going to do with all the fruit if nobody else has any? Does that make sense? Yeah. Why do we live the way we do? I know, sin. But as we made the point in class, and I think I said this yesterday, as complicated and complex as religion seems to be, and God is such a mystery, it's pretty simple. Love one another. I think this also comes from the Ubuntu people. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go happy and blessed, go together. Too many people in first world countries love and prefer to go alone. And there was another psychologist, Jesuit priest, who did a social survey. And people in first world countries are not only feeling alone and isolated It's gotten to the point where they feel they no longer belong. That is not good. We're social beings. It was many years ago. I was still at the seminary at the time, and it was at a talk by someone who's really become a international speaker now. And the priest had said, "Our lives do not belong to us." And you have to live some years before you realize how true that is. Our lives do not belong to us. We're really here for one another. And the sooner and faster and more deeply we understand and realize that, the happier and better we're going to be, and everyone else is going to be as well. That's really what Paul is saying in this reading. We belong to Christ because he created us, he died for us, he rose from the dead, that he might be Lord of the dead and the living. We see the same tone in the gospel. Notice, it's really the point, notice that the parable is directed to the Pharisees and the scribes. Quite wonderfully and wisely, the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near Jesus. Why? Because he was a loving, forgiving, gracious, and approachable person. Do you think they were going to approach the scribes and the Pharisees? Why would they? They would just be condemned and punished and criticized and given some fine or punishment for supposed sins. He addressed the parable to them. What person, what shepherd who has 100 sheep and loses one would go out and look for the lost one? None of them would, really. I mean, why would they do that? But God would. That's really the point, isn't it? Now, the Pharisees would say, well, let's see, who would do that? Well, I guess it depends which one got lost. And if it was a sinner, I was like, well, we don't need that one anyway. If it was someone we really don't like and maybe somebody that caused trouble in the community, well, we don't need that one either. We'll let that one go. Those are the ones God goes and finds and brings back. It is in some ways an image of the church because we are a community and we are better together than we are separated. The 99 have each other to protect and defend one another and each other. The one is the most vulnerable for whatever good or bad reason, and God, the Good Shepherd, will and did give his life for the one. It's an interesting parallel, whatever the word is, it's not really a metaphor either, but it's an interesting thing when Jesus says, all the angels will rejoice over one repentant sinner. Think how happy God is when someone turns and realizes they're better with the group than with themselves. You know, the terrible twos, I'll do it myself. Those are kind of hard years for mom and dad, right? But if we hold on to that through our lives, it's not very happy-making. I'll try to say this right. It comes up in, not quite as clearly in the Holy Longing that we're reading in our book group, but in the most recent book that Father Rolheiser has written. He said there's really 3 movements or stages of life. The early stages up to, say, theoretically at least, 20, up to 20, 25, whatever, we're trying to figure out who we are. It really is about ourselves. Who are we? How do I relate? Who are my people? And how do I become myself? And then you have the middle years. The second movement and stage of life is we learn how to give our lives away. And those would be a stage where most people will get married and they will learn to give their lives to their spouse or their children, to their home and property. They pay mortgages. He's big on that example, paying mortgages. And so we learn to give our lives away. And then the final stage is, and we really haven't learned this quite well because there's not a lot written about it, and he's really writing an important book on this thing. He says the third stage is learning how to give our death away. So that realizing that we're coming to the last segment of our lives, that we exist to give ourselves to others. Now, how might one give their life away? By being an elder, by being the wise grandparent. I had a deacon friend, Robert, of course I can't think of his name right now, and he was a deacon for a long time. He was the former mayor of Trenton, and he died last year. And for many years, his family would go up to Camp Ozanam on Lake Huron. And for part of that week they were there, a part of every day he would take his lawn chair and go sit 300-400 yards out in the field looking at the lake. And he would just sit there. And inevitably, a family member, whether a grandchild or a niece or a nephew or a son or a daughter, they would bring another chair and they would just go and sit with him. And they'd have conversation. And maybe they'd solve a problem. Or maybe they'd talk about some movement of life. Deacon Bob was being an elder. He was giving his life away in the wisdom of the years that he learned, and he shared himself that the legacy of the fruit of the love of his life, because of that, the way he did that, lived on in his children and his nieces and nephews, grandkids. Think about that. Our lives are not our own. When we live in a culture of competition, compare and contrast, we all lose. We belong to each other. We're happier when we love others, and we're even happier when we let others love us, especially God.